for our range of motion, for the active range of motion, we're going to make sure that we're testing wrist flexion. We want to test wrist extension. We want to test supination, pronation. We also want to test radial deviation and ulnar deviation. Again, I value keeping the body in anatomical position. I think that really helps with what is doing what. It gets confusing when you start, just grabbing the hand, palm down. I think it gets really confusing. So I like to keep it, palm up, anatomical position. Wrist flexion is going to be this way. Wrist extension is this way. Okay. If we flip the hands over, this is still wrist flexion, and this is wrist extension. Okay, so just make sure you're thinking about it when you're doing it, because it's really, really easy to get those confused. We're also going to be looking at metacarpal MP flexion and extension. So our MCP, metacarpal phalangeal flexion and extension. We also can have abduction and adduction here as well. We also are going to have PIP flexion and extension. We have DIP flexion and extension, okay, for all of those. So all of our fingers, everything's flexion and extension. We have thumb, flexion, extension, adduction, and abduction. Those are going to be all motions that we have to test for our active range of motion. Now, when we are doing our passive range of motion, remember that's going to be that passive overpressure. So we have them do wrist flexion, and then we're going to provide that little bit extra. Wrist extension, provide a little bit extra. When you're doing if you remember the goniometry measurements, right? If you have them just do active range of motion, right, you get a certain measurement. But if you have them do passive range of motion, we get them here to active. See how much farther I have in range of motion when I'm pushed. I can't actively do this, but by passively flexing, I get a lot more range of motion. Same thing in an extension, right? That's as far as I can go. Get a little bit more that way, not as much as I do in flexion. So that's going to be important to get that overpressure. Supination, overpressure, pronation, overpressure. Okay, I'm going to do this. Ulnar deviation, continuing on. Radial deviation, a little bit passive overpressure. You don't get as much motion that way as you do in the ulnar. Same with our MP flexion and extension, right? Flexion, we can push a little bit, extension, a little bit. Abduction, adduction is a little bit harder to do. Same with our flexors, our PIPs and our DIPs, right? Just getting a little extra overpressure. It is going to be easier because of how the strength of your finger flexors and extensors. It is a lot easier to test all 4 of the fingers together rather than to do them individually. You're going to get a better result with the strength that way.